I'm Martin Jarvis, and I want to welcome you once again to another perspective. Why peace is the only real power. That's what we're going to talk about today, peace. We think of peace and we think of the Middle East. We think of peace and we think of Ukraine. All these places that would benefit from peace. But what I'm talking about today is not the peace in the world, the peace among nations. What I'm suggesting is that we need to be looking for the peace that resides within ourselves. The problem is when we affix ourselves to the exterior chaos, is even in the righteous mindset of attempting to find peace. Whichever side we land on, someone in the conflict is going to get the short end of the stick. So that's not really the peace that we're looking for. We're looking for a peace within ourselves. Okay? And that's very difficult for most folks. But on this journey, in this program, we're going to talk about peace and how to attain peace and how to keep it. See, we've been sold a bill of goods that has taken down every kind of chaotic rabbit hole you can imagine, whether from politics or religions or social ideologies. We focus on race. We focus on superiority or inferiority. We focus on nationality, superiority, inferiority. We focus on wealth or being poor. We've divided ourselves as human beings into so many categories where we can easily look at someone else and determine we're better than an individual is. But the reality, none of us are. We're all pretty much in the same boat. Some of us are just living with choices we've made, living with choices our families have made, our families before them have made. And so we reap the benefits or we reap the suffering from bad choices. But as far as human beings, there are no human beings on this planet that are intrinsically bad. And we have to recognize that no matter what our lot in life is, whether it's good or whether it's bad, there are reasons, there are causes that were initiated before we even came onto this planet. Some of our issues are maybe the families we were raised in, maybe the environments we came up in, the exposures, things that affected us before we were even cognizant that we could be affected, before we were even cognizant of what a belly button was, or whatever. We didn't know any better. And so by the time we come to the age of making decisions for ourselves, we're going in a particular direction that was not initiated by us. So it's very. I think we're in error when we blame others for the negative lots in their lives, or we take the credit for the positives in our own lives, when it was really the influences. We're fortunate to have influences, or misfortunate to have influences that affected us in such a way that makes us and moves us to be the people we are today. Even our enthusiasm about bettering ourselves in life, or even the enthusiasms about how to be a better criminal, whatever it is. It's really not our fault when we look at cause and effect. Okay. Now the immediate effect from our immediate cause, yes, that's us, but there are certain decisions that were made prior to us getting here that would influence even the way we think. And so what we think is sometimes right is actually wrong, and some of the things that we think are wrong are actually right. Some of the things that we think are cool are uncool, and the things that we think are uncool are cool. We are the victims to the environments in which we were raised. And so we want to find a way to correct that, because the key is peace. Some of us are walking in no peace of mind. And some of us, our lives are really jacked up and we have no peace of mind. Some of us, our lives to most people would be extremely well and wealthy and we have no peace. Why? Because peace is generated from within, not from without. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is your peace, my peace, your peace. I asked my mom once, who was a believer, a Christian, and she was about 85 or 90 years old. And I asked her opinion on when she thought the end of time would be. and she sat down to give me an answer. And I was excited because I was ready for this profound answer. I love speaking with old people and getting a sense of what they're thinking, especially the real old ones. And she said to me, she said, you know, when the end of time will be, and I was ready, man, pencil in hand, not really, but I was ready for an answer. The response was, when you die, that will be the end of your world. And as simple as that sounded and almost disappointing initially, it was so profound. Because we're looking out like the Nostradamus, you know, like looking out, you know, when is it going to be? 1,000 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, when will the end of the world be? Well, for it's going to be when you die. That's the end of your world. That's the end of the world. That's the end of all existence. To you will be when you die, when I die. And what I want to share then is it's so important to recognize how instrumental you are in the reality that we live through today. When you die, the world dies to you. So it's all about you. And what I want to share today is then peace is all about you too. Chaos is all about you. Happiness, unhappiness, satisfaction, dissatisfaction is all about you. Realize that, own that, grasp that, and then recognize that's something that you are going to have to come up with. The peace that resides within you. That there will be peace in the world. Even though there isn't, as long as there is peace within you. Because that's all we're really looking for in life. We're not really concerned about all these other things. I mean, we think we are. But our real concern is how we feel, okay? And what I'm suggesting to you is step one, the most basic thing is to feel good, to feel peace in yourself. You know, they say when you're on an airplane, and the stewardess is giving you all those instructions which you've probably heard a million times and sometimes you're not even listening to now anymore. Is that when she gets to the part about that little air thing that falls out from the roof above your head, before you begin tending to the need of your neighbor who might be suffering, what do? You put yours on first. You get your air flowing so you can think clearly, so you won't be distracted. And you find yourself in a place where you can help other people. But before you can help someone get that clear air into their lungs, you have to have clear and pure oxygen going into your lungs. You can't help and give what you don't have, okay? And so what I want to share is that's how peace is. You can't have peace. You can't share peace unless you have it. So we're going to talk about how to get peace within yourself. And when you get peace in yourself, there is a satisfaction. There is a calmness. And you're no longer trying to force your ideologies. You're no longer trying to force your peace on other people. They're looking at you and saying, hey, I want what you have. That's the way the peace begins to assimilate. Confusing without understanding, folks often try and succeed kind of satisfying their need for peace artificially with alcohol and with drugs, and it kind of works for the moment, it seems to, because it dulls a piece of your thinking, it dulls a piece of your mind, your brain, allows you to let down your defenses and be what you might consider smooth. It's an artificial peace. And you know why I call it an artificial peace? Because it's not really a peace. Because, you know, you could be out with your buddies, and you could be, you know, getting high or drinking alcohol and feeling really good and laughing and goofing around and cutting up and just feeling at peace, right? And how do you tell if it's artificial? First, if you have to create it, of course it's artificial. But a sign is, let your buddies come around you having been drinking and smoking weed and you be sober. How do they look to you? The same way you look to other folks when you walk around them having been drinking, having been smoking. You might be laughing, you might be giddy, you might be giggling. But it's ridiculous to people who are sober around you. And so what I'm suggesting is we don't want to artificially inseminate ourselves with peace, right? With alcohol and drugs and all. We want the real thing. And so then what I want to correlate this artificial peace would be as well to the political parties who are offering you particular ideologies and giving you the impression that everything is going to be all right as long as this political party's ideology goes into play. And what I'm suggesting with you again, that's just another form of an artificial peace, a created peace. And you find that out after the election, after your guy or your girl wins. After your ideologies are beginning to be passed, you recognize that there's no peace in those at all. And often those ideologies that seem so great become coming back to haunt you and biting you. Because they were never real peace, they were simply artificial. So the ideologies, as they're coming into a reality, although you may have won, your guy or girl may have won, and it's not what you thought it would be. It's almost like the hangover from using one of those other kind of artificial pieces, the drugs or the alcohol. It's just a simple reality. Peace has to come within, and it can. And so what I'm sharing with you, the first way to realize, or the first way to begin on that journey to realizing real peace within yourself, is to disassociate yourself with others. With others who are blind in this area, okay? Because it's that crowd mentality. It's that negative feeding off of each other mentality that keeps people hyped up. But going in the wrong direction, going the direction of that artificial peace, the real peace, is found within you. And it's necessary to disassociate yourself with so many people. Don't have a lot of friends. Don't have a lot of friends. Have very few friends. Almost none. And in that time, in that quiet time, in the meditative time, when you're with yourself, you'll begin to consider and realize it. It's almost like the more friends you have, the more noise that's around you. And the more noise that's around you is not allowing you to think deeply as you should, but finally just acquiescing to the noise and becoming a part of the noise. But that noise isn't going to bring you peace. It's the quiet that's going to bring you peace. Peace will come to you in what's known as that still small voice, which only comes to you in silence, only comes to you in quiet, when there aren't distractions. That still small voice. Disassociate yourself from others. Don't have many friends. Just a few, maybe one. Quiet time. Don't be distracted. And as you begin to minimize your friendships, you begin to have more time to yourself, more thinking time, more deep thinking time, peaceful, meditative time, and you begin to recognize things that need to be done that haven't been getting done, even in your own life, like your health. That's a key to peace of the mind, to peace of the individual. Because you can't have peace if you're unhealthy. If you're feeling stuffed, if you're overweight, or if you're sickly or anemic or whatever, there's no peace in that. Find ways to make yourself healthy. And if you're already not in a debilitative state, then begin making yourself healthy so you can stay healthy and not have to go through the suffering of symptoms of some type of illness. And if you have an illness, begin to walk it back slowly. With targeted health keys, like the food you're eating, the sleep you're getting or not getting, and the rest and the exercise as well. When you have quiet time, you begin to realize all the ways that you can begin to perfect yourself, and I believe that's the key. It's perfecting yourself. Begin working on you. Fix your hair, shave. Cut your fingernails. Begin taking care of yourselves, even the exterior things that might not even seem related to the peace what's in you. As you begin taking care of everything that you can even imagine about yourself, you're going to be working that peace from the outside in. Now, I know I said peace doesn't come from the outside in, but what I'm speaking of is the outside world and the artifacts, the things out there to appropriate or to change and think they're going to find the peace within. It's not. But when I say out there in this context, from the outside in, I mean your outside in, because you are that entity. I know we have the outward part and the inward part, but you are that inward part. So begin taking care of you. Step by step, inch by inch, your hair, lotion, yeah, even cologne and shaving, and you did perfume and do all those things. Just make yourself look good, perfect every aspect of you. And it's even in the process of perfecting you, it's almost a meditative subconscious state where you're appreciating you more, getting in touch with you. That's where that peace emanates. The chaos emanates from connecting with so many people, so many chaotic and angry, disheartened, saddened, dissatisfied people, and it almost becomes infecting, and you find yourself being assimilated into their chaos. But no, as you begin to tend to yourself, the little things, and then contemplating the bigger things, as you run out of little things, you are perfecting yourself, and you'll begin to find peace within yourself in your quiet time. Even in the process of perfecting yourself is the process of a type of meditation. And in that meditation comes deeper thoughts. And the deeper thoughts will be, how can I make myself better? How can I increase my worth to me? That's where your peace lies. And it will go from the exterior of you to the interior, to the food. What kind of food am I taking? You know? Am I eating too much sugar? Am I eating too much bread? Am I not doing enough of this and eating enough of that, or drinking some of this? You'll begin to perfect yourself physically, your body. And as well, the exercise, you recognize how important exercise. You're going to say, hey, well, I do some exercises, and the exercise, you're perfecting yourself even more. And spiritually. Now this is a key. A key is knowledge. A key is education. I know in this day and age, a lot of times when we're uneducated, we have a negativity about educated people. And we think, oh, it's only a piece of paper, oh, it's nothing. You know, I was that guy once. Until at 50 years old, I decided just for the fun of it to go to school for an associate degree. And in 10 years, I had my associate degree, my bachelor's degree, and my MBA. And I realized even through that process of education, as your mind is expanding, your worldview is expanding. And as your worldview begins to expand, you begin to see things differently. A lot of the negativities, a lot of the harshness that you judged before begin to change as you begin to see from a different perspective. Education is important, and not just formal education, informal too. I mean, I got my MBA 7 years ago when I was 60 years old, but you think I stopped studying, I stopped learning? No, there's always something to learn on YouTube or, you know, on the internet or Google. And now that there's AI, man, all the knowledge of the world is at your fingertips, always. And I would suggest, you know, don't function in sort of a political way. Don't go out looking for folks who agree with you, okay? It's about finding things that challenge you, because if all of your time is spent seeking out, say news organizations or references over the internet of things that you already agree with, there is no growth in that. What causes growth is a challenge. It's what we call an antithesis. Okay? Antithesis. Thesis is what you know, what you believe. Anti is against, a challenge to what you know. That's the key to growth. It's sort of like when you're working out, you know, when you're lifting weights, you know, how do you get muscles? Because in the lifting of weights, you're destroying your muscle cells, okay? And then overnight, over the next 24 hours or so, those muscle cells replenish themselves, but they're stronger than they were before. And if you keep doing that in a consistent time and basis, you're going to get very strong. That strength only comes because you've challenged who you were. You challenged your muscles. Your mind is the same way. Don't simply surround yourself with people who already agree with what you believe. There is no growth in that. Find people who challenge your belief, and even in your belief being challenged with other knowledge, with a depth of knowledge you didn't once know, you're going to be challenged yourself to, well, man, you know, maybe I'll adjust my attitude just a little bit. Or maybe I'll just give up what I've been believing all this time because that makes more sense. Or maybe my position will be even strengthened because I recognize that that can't possibly be true. But not because mama told me, not because daddy told me, not because this is the church or this is the city or the nation or the mosque or the temple or the church that I came up in. But because this is what I am seriously considering, and that just doesn't make sense. Man, this is where peace of mind comes from. The more education you have, whether it's formal or informal, hopefully both, you grow, your mind grows, your understanding grows, your reality grows, your worldview expands. And as your worldview expands, folks just can't pull the wool over your eyes because you'll be looking at situations and you'll be intelligently, educationally judging situations on their own merit. And you'll find a lot of times a lack of peace in our society is because certain educated manipulators convinced you to believe a certain thing that was obviously not true. But as you begin to grow, as you begin to educate yourself, as your worldview begins to expand, you see for yourself right from wrong. Now, when I look at the politicians or I look at the religious folks or folks, proclaiming social issues, I don't necessarily judge them through the sieve of what I've always believed. I allow them to challenge me. And I want to hear what you have to say. Because I want to see if what I'm believing is correct. So I'll honestly listen to you, and if it makes more sense, it makes more sense. Okay? It's very important. It's very important to allow ourselves to be challenged. Otherwise, we're just like sheep being led around wherever someone else wants us to go. Don't do that. Don't be that way. Think for yourself. That's where the peace comes in, because as you begin to see the charlatans, as you begin to see the snake oil salesmen, as you begin to see politicians and religious folks with their own particular agenda and interests, which rely on your blind allegiance, which rely on your inability to comprehend the difference. Man, when I look at all these different folks, whether it's the politicians, the religious folks, the social folks, I don't judge their ideology initially, unless it's obviously harmful to someone. I judge the individual. Is that a good person or an evil person? And that's it. If it's a good person, I can trust a good person. If it's an evil person, I can't. They just might be good at what they're doing. If it's an evil person, so there comes a point where it might be difficult to judge between ideologies, because each side is giving a pretty good case. But just look at the individual bringing that ideology to you and judge that individual. Are they good or are they evil? Don't make excuses for the individual. Don't do that. Because remember, your peace, your particular peace resides within you. And intentionally attaching yourself to something that is evil will not bring you peace. And that's all we're really looking for. We're just looking to be happy, looking to be satisfied, and that happiness and satisfaction will only come through a peace of mind. Where there is no peace of mind, there will be no satisfaction in life. And be good. Speak good into people's lives. Seek good, do good, be good. Don't be negative, don't be harsh. You ever go down, maybe if you're in Facebook and you scroll down and you find something real good about somebody made an accomplishment, somebody did this or somebody did that, and everybody's congratulating, that's great, that's wonderful, all that's a little party favors and all that stuff going up, but you find that one person has to say something negative, say something harsh. And sometimes sometimes I just scroll down just to see if everybody's going to be good. I just look for that one negative, just to be amazed. And then I wonder what's going on in the heart of that individual. That individual has no peace. Because when you have peace, you're not going to be negative to folks. That's a way to judge. That's like the litmus test to judge yourself whether you're walking in peace. If you're walking in peace, you won't be harsh. You won't be critical to other people. You won't be considering yourself the victim and everybody's against me, and you won't be harsh on them either, even in their evil, even in their ignorance. Because you recognize they are victims to their own ignorance. You walk in that peace. And use your time in peace to begin to enlighten folks, to begin to give folks a different perspective that might help them in life. And I was talking to this one guy. I'm not political. And so I'm not, if I think I'm probably more left-leaning or Democrat-leaning, but I don't claim either one, Republican or Democrat. I was talking to this real harsh Republican one time, and he was a white guy. You know, I'm Air Force, and he's retired Army and all. And we have good conversations. We totally see things differently in just about every aspect of life, but there was something common between the two of us, and we get along so well. And one day he was telling me, he was talking about the president. This was before the election. President Trump has done so much for black people. And he was trying to, he was getting ready to get on this list, and I'm like, I'm not going there, because I'm a 66-year-old black man in America. I've lived a life, I've experienced some things. But I wasn't going to argue that with him, because he had already had in his mind all this stuff he'd heard somewhere or written down or whatever it was. But I said, well, let me ask you a question. There is no president that's supposed to do anything for any one group of people. We're all American citizens. But let me ask you a question. What has he done for white people? Because this guy already told me he's got $100 in the bank, he's struggling financially, he's kind of jacked up, relationally, his situation is kind of jacked up in life. So I'm saying, what has he done for you? Don't talk to me about what he's done for black people. Let me ask you, what has he done for white people? And he sat there and he looked like that deer in the headlight. He didn't have an answer. He had like epiphany that moment, I felt like the angel Gabriel, and I just come out and give him his word or something, I don't know. It's very important, man. We can't be defending other folks. We have to be searching for the peace ourselves. And that peace can only find in truth. I think in the religious Christian scripture, Jesus says that the truth will make you free. Well, that freedom would be peace. And so I would interpret that to mean then that peace that we're all searching for real can only be found in truth. And so it's very difficult to be fighting someone else's battle, someone else's rhetoric, someone else's ideology and all this stuff, passionate what they're passionate about. Man, I look at the political parties today, both of them today. So I look at the Republican Party and I say, some of the angry and evil stuff might be kind of problematic, and then some of the economic decisions might be problematic as well. And then I see these rallies that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders is having with thousands and thousands of people cheering them on and responding to their ideological words and everything. But I'm like, so what's the end game? You guys lost with these same people that were cheering you on then. So I'm looking at both of these political parties. They're just, I want to say they are kind of feeding off of the energy of their own base, but they're also feeding them what their base is going to applaud to, that satisfies them in turn. But when the smoke clears and the dust settles, we have to judge what's good versus evil. And man, so I have a very unique position, because I find myself at odds with both political parties in this nation, because I don't see the point. I see good, I see evil, and I make my judgments. But see, my focus and my function is that you have to have the peace within yourself. I can't let this political party dictate my peace of mind, and recognize that whenever the 1, 2, 3, or 4 years is over, am I going to have been affected? No. So this guy's going to be a lot richer. So what did that do really for my peace? And I look at this political party, I agree there and I agree there and this and that and this and that. And then I'm mad at them and they're mad at them and they're mad at me and all this. But when the smoke clears and the dust settles, they're richer. Where am I? You got to find your own peace, and your own peace isn't fighting somebody else's chaotic battle or somebody else's business venture or somebody else's ideology or political aspirations. The peace resides within you. You cannot affix yourself to any political party, because your peace will not come from that. You'll find stuff to be mad about, whoever's elected. Where's your peace coming from? It's within you. When you find peace, the way will manifest before you. The way, the Tao, the Chinese with the Tao Te Ching, the way of, your way will manifest before you. I have a real good friend, and he's always involved in these conspiracy theories. Whether it's the Illuminati, Rothschild thing, or all the myriad of other conspiracies that are out there, and some of them are just totally ridiculous, but folks buy into them. But what I'm suggesting is, what is that doing for you? So this, the Illuminati and the Rothschild thing, you know, it's a big old, you know, conspiracy thing. So and how all the political presidents have been already picked and they're all related and all this stuff. How is that really affecting you personally? It's not. So when you're all wrapped up in the conspiracy, trying to prove that, research this, research that, what's that doing for you personally? Nothing. What I suggested to him, and I'm suggesting to you, and I'm, you know, holding myself as well, is that no matter what the conspiracies are, even if they're true, in our circle of existence, we're not being affected. We can be wealthy, we can be extremely wealthy and extremely successful, or we can be poor. But then even worse, we can be worried and we can have no peace, or we can have peace. And that's what it all boils down to. Don't worry about stuff. And attach yourself to people, to politics, to religions, to social ideologies, and lose yourself and not have peace. So this is the journey we'll be on probably for the next year or so. And if you stick with it, we'll have that peace forever. But in the meantime, I want to thank you once again for joining me for another perspective. And I want to invite you to join us again. You take care.